Welcome back to the Oscar Project Podcast, the show where I discuss Oscar-nominated films year by year. I am your host, Jonathan Eacherberg, and today I'm bringing you an interview with Victoria Warmerdam and Trent, director and producer of the short film I'm Not a Robot. Before I jump into the interview, please be sure to subscribe to the show in your podcast player so you can get all the newest episodes as soon as they are released. If you like the interview and want to hear more, please consider leaving a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Victoria Warmerdam is a director and writer whose previous short films, Short Calf Muscle and Snorri Mustachio, have screened at over 150 festivals around the world, including St. Louis, Edmonton, Show Me Shorts, LA Shorts, and Flickers. Both films have received more than 50 international awards, and she received the £30,000 Iris Prize for Short Calf Muscle. Trent is the owner of Amsterdam-based Oak Motion Pictures, an acclaimed production company whose filmography includes successes at Berlinale, Cannes, and Tribeca. The studio also saw the Josh Trengrove-directed film The Wound make the Oscar shortlist in 2018. The pair joined me on the podcast to talk about their short film collaboration, I'm Not a Robot, which won the Best Short Film at the Oscar-qualifying Sitges Festival 2023 and is nominated for Best Live-Action Short Film at the 97th Academy Awards. Victoria and Trent, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having us.
That was a nice intro.
Well, I want to start off with the concept of your film. The main character, Lara, is just going about her day at work when a sudden realization crosses her path that kind of completely changes her reality. Where did the idea, the concept for this film originally come from?
Well, yeah, the film starts as how the idea was sparked, which was like I was trying to get through those CAPTCHAs where you have to prove that you're not a robot. You have to click on all the squares with traffic lights, for examples. And I kept failing for 4 or 5 times. And then I thought, oh, this might be a fun way to find out I'm actually a robot. So it started with this funny thought. But when I start to think about the whole concept of it, I found it very eerie because for some reason I have this fear that someday, someone will tell me that the world is not what I thought it was.
Or that you are not what you think you are.
Well,
Right.
this whole or question of oh, but am I a robot? And, therefore purchased by my partner, it's such a dark turn, to go there. But it started with a funny thing, and then, it took a much darker turn. Yeah.
And also it turned out that you wanted to work with existential dilemmas like who am I? What is humanity? Who are we? That was also nice. What came after that, of course.
Yeah.
And I really like how the film kind of looks at the idea of the being a robot as a kind of an integral part of the society, and you start to contemplate, like you said, those moral questions. Were you trying to get other people to kind of think along those lines with the film, or were there any specific perspectives you wanted to touch on in terms of those thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's when you sort of raise that question of am I a robot, or am I, the whole question of maybe the world is different than I thought. I think it's interesting to see the film from that perspective, because then you can think, okay, but maybe, the co-workers in the office space that the film is set in are maybe also robots. And I think it raises many questions. I think also the whole question of what makes us human is something I touch on in the film. And I think that's interesting, especially with AI now, the whole developments around AI and but also the regulations around that. I feel like it's a bit scary because the AI developments are it's developing so quickly, but the rules are still not clear. And I think, we have to, I think it's hard and difficult to really overthink the consequences of AI. So yeah, I think that's also something that's, that I start to think about making this film.
Yeah, and also the scary thought, that's what you mentioned in the beginning, the scary thought, what if AI is almost human?
Yeah.
That balance, because AI, we might think about robots who are just AI, but
Yeah.
then what if the robots are just like us? What if they are indistinguishable from humans? They do have emotions, they do bleed.
And also, I wonder too, when you were making the film, was there ever any concern of, because all of those technologies, the AI is advancing so quickly that by the time you got something like this completed, it might even be outdated already?
Yeah, I think that's always a very interesting thing, like when reality is sort of
Catching up.
catching up on fiction. But I think, we started this, or the idea was sparked like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So it was actually, yeah, it was actually before, ChatGPT became very big and things like that. So we shot the film in 23,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. And we were supposed to shoot it in beginning of 22, but we had to postpone it a couple of times because of COVID. And now that at least when it came out last year, of course, the entire AI discussion it's much more relevant than 3 years ago.
Sure.
It might even be good that we had a 1 year delay.
Yeah, I think this was the best timing.
I think so.
It's like funny now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. Now, one of my favorite aspects of the film, you mentioned the office space that the most of it takes place in, the production design of that. Everything seemed very well designed. What was the process like putting that together from kind of concepts of what that would look like to seeing it in the eventual film and the filming process?
I think when I wrote the script, we drew inspiration from the nostalgia for vintage and retro design, countering that fast changing sci-fi world. And I find that very interesting because I think, we human beings, like, we really have this longing for the past. Like, our design right now is also mostly, based on the past. And, I remember talking about this with my DP, Martijn van Broekhuizen, and he immediately said, "Oh, but maybe we can shoot it on film." And I never shot on film, and usually DPs like to shoot on film, but I think in this case it really made sense because I was looking for that vintage vibe, but also the human approach in the film. And I think going back to that human craftsmanship of shooting on film, that really ties into that human approach. So yeah, we went to Trent, our producer, to see if that was an option. And yeah, you were pretty excited about it
Yeah,
from the start.
because I do like shooting on film. I mean, the last time I did it before Robot, I think was maybe 10 years ago, because it doesn't happen that often. It's most of the time it's easier to shoot digital. It's also most of the time a bit cheaper. And people are getting used to it, but I do like that craftsmanship of film. And so I try to find out, okay, what can we make it through in this budget? And then I found out, yes, we could. And I also thought that the thought of shooting on film really fitted the film. So I'm really glad that we did it because we also had a wonderful focus on set. Everybody was kind of like anxious. Okay, we have to get these takes right. We have to have a proper rehearsal before we start to shoot. And then, yeah, I did really like it.
Yeah, also
And
because
natural film should also be shot on film, I think.
yeah, I think I always like to prepare, and I think when you shoot on film, you have to prepare because the amount of film material is not endlessly, unfortunately. So you really have to prepare and rehearse before you shoot, and I think that's I think you see that in the film, like everything is, in my opinion, like very chosen, if I can say it like that. Like it's very deliberate because we had to really think about, okay, what is it that you really need for this film, because you only have this amount of material. So that's a really interesting thing to discover. And yeah, I'm afraid that I never can go back on shooting on digital because it's so beautiful. Shooting on film, like, it looks so gorgeous. So I'm definitely spoiled now.
But also help because we shot 2 films before. We also did it work together on those short films. Those films were shot digitally, but you are a director who like to prepare anyway. So even if we shoot digital, we don't shoot rehearsals. We have to prepare and then we shoot. So for me, that also was kind of a reassuring thought that I know she's a director who doesn't shoot endlessly and really like to prepare. So you're also a director who kind of is born to shoot on film.
Yeah.
That's good. Now, Ellen Parham, I think hopefully I'm saying her name correctly. She plays Lara in the film. Never seen her in a film, so she was a really nice revelation to see in the film. Tell me a little bit about casting her and how she went about diving into getting into the brain space, I guess, if you will, for the
Yeah.
role.
Ellen had been on my radar for a long time due to her brilliant comedy timing and her ability to approach comedy in such a serious way. And, even before there was a script, I asked her if she'd be interested in me writing this film for her. And luckily she was, so I had the luxury of like tailoring the scripts specifically for her. But when we started working together, I immediately discovered that we share the same sensibilities, the same sense of humor. So it was really easy and fun to work with someone that, understands you without many words. And yeah, she just, she took the whole process super seriously, and she was very keen to like really explore the character, because the film starts with this very mundane captcha thing and then, spirals out of control pretty quickly in less than 30 minutes. So there are just a few, like there are many steps she has to go through before the ending. And yeah, she approached it like very well with that human approach, but she was also always making sure that every beat was very thought out in a way, and that's because her character sort of like there's this existential drama, but you can't play a character that is worried all the time, or there are different layers to that. And I think she did a tremendous job because she's amazing. Like she is this film, and I'm super super proud of her.
But also, you said that you've never seen her before, which I totally understand because she's a Dutch actress and she plays in Dutch films. She's quite famous in the Netherlands, and all the other actors are too, by the way. But the nice thing about Ellen, and I hope you will see her more because she's actually American. She's half American.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
her mother is American.
Yeah, her mother is American, so
Yeah.
yeah, I just really hope that she will find an American audience.
Yeah, exactly.
So for every director or casting director who's listening, who's like,
She has a US passport.
she has a U.S. passport, so green card stuff. So yeah, I hope she will find an American audience.
This is some
Yeah.
Ellen.
Yeah, I think hopefully you'll be able to see her again, because I really enjoyed her in the film. I also wanted to call out the sound of the film. There were some moments where the kind of the sound completely drops away and it focuses in just on what she is hearing, through her headphones, things like that. What was kind of the thought process behind setting up the sound in that way? And then along with that, the music for the film, kind of talk a little bit about the process of the musical aspect as well.
Yeah, the music of the film was
Did you
always
this time?
yeah, the music of the film was always a big part of this film, because in my previous two shorts, those two shorts were very dial-up driven, and I noticed that when I was looking for, the right music with the composer, it was always just a little bit of music at the ending, or, maybe in between, and I thought, oh, but I want this film to be like the full cinematic experience with the music and the sound design as well. So when I was writing the script, I involved the composer as well. So we were like talking about the film, and he made some music during the writing, so we could go back and forth and sort of like inspire each other. So that was really, really cool, because some of that music is still in the film right now. So I think, that approach is like really our philosophy of film as this holistic thing. Like it really works well if we start to involve crew earlier on in the process. And for the sound design, yeah, I think we were looking for this sort of balance between the technology and the human part of the film. And I think the sound design is leaning into more like the human approach of like very, close to her and close to her perspective, and like
Breathing.
her breathing, her heartbeat, stuff like that. And the music was more on the side of like the technology and like the robotic part of the film. So yeah, it was sort of like this marriage between both technology and the human side of it.
I really like that. So what other challenges did you face on this production as a whole that we haven't talked about already?
Oh wow, yeah.
So many.
Every film has its own challenges. I think
Shooting on film.
shooting on film was my challenge, and especially because we had this camera, the Penelope, and there are only a few left in Europe. So for that reason, we couldn't get like a proper monitor. Like it was a proper monitor, but it was like this crappy VHS image on it.
Yeah.
Look, so when I looked at the monitor, I was like, oh my God, is this what I'm going to, see the rest of the shooting? Because usually I'm so focused on details and watch those details on the monitor, and I couldn't see any details on this one. So I was quite worried about it. Like I remember shooting outside, and then you have all this other stuff, like filters and stuff to shoot on site on film. So I couldn't see even less. And at some point I was even asking the actress Ellen, like, okay, but what did you just play? Because I couldn't see it on the monitor, and I really had to rely on,
Other people.
other people and what's happening, like in real time on set. So that was a big challenge.
Also, the editing was a big challenge.
Yeah, the
That's-
editing is the
You don't
editing
use-
is always a challenge for me, because it's quite confronting that, before that, the whole process before that, the film is just this next best thing in your head. And then when you see the everything in the edit, like, then okay, but this is what I actually have to work with. So that's very confronting. And usually Trent, he does my first cut with the editor, because I just hate the first cut. But even after that, I was like, oh my God, I might have made the worst film ever.
She even asked me after I think 70% of the editing time, she even asked me like, I think I made the worst film ever. If we finish it, can we put it on the shelf that we don't have to do anything? I said, yes, of course, we don't have any obligations. We can put it on a shelf. And that
Yeah.
was like, I think 70% of the editing.
Yeah, I think after like 70%, it was like, okay, now we are finding the flow of the film, and
It might be something.
it might be something. And I really had to trust you and the editor to, who are more experienced in a way. So that was one
Big learning process.
learning process, like to really trust the process and rely on the more experienced people around me. Yeah.
That was also with the ending. Of course, it's visual effects in the ending, and you also have to trust with visual effects on the people who are experienced with visual effects, because if they show you what they made and they show like it's the first version, then it's like 80% or 70% of the visual effects. But visual effects in 70 or 80%, it just doesn't work. It only works when it's done proper at 100%. So then it was like, yeah, okay, this could be something, but it's not there yet, and it's the end of the film. So if it doesn't work, you don't have an ending of the film. So that was also a big challenge, to rely on the visual effects.
Yeah, and have patience, and wait until it really works out. But yeah, that was a bit nerve-wracking. Yeah.
And okay, one more challenge. We have so many, but we have small personal one. Is that we have a dog together, and our dog. It was the first time that our dog was on set, and we thought, oh, this is gonna be fine. But in the end, he was stealing food from the catering table, and he was also in the building. He was taking the elevator to go to other floors. Of course, he didn't push the button himself, or it's she actually. She didn't push the button herself, but she was waiting in the elevator, like, okay, it's going up and down, and then she was on another floor. So my job on set was 50%
Dog sitting.
dog sitting, which was also a challenge.
Yeah, that's the first time I think I've ever heard anyone say that they had a challenge with wrangling a dog on set. Well, I have a couple questions not specifically related to the film, but before I move on to those, is there anything else you want to touch on about I'm Not a Robot?
There's not something that comes to mind now.
No, I don't think so. I think we touched everything.
Excellent. Well, this might be the hardest question I ask, Ben, but if you had to pick your top 3 films of all time, what would they be?
Oh, but that's
So you
always
You
such a
start.
difficult question.
Top 3 of today.
Top 3, yeah, that could be, different tomorrow, but I think like one of my all-time favorites is Being Joe Malkovich by Spike Jonze and Charlie Kaufman. I remember watching that film and thinking, okay, but it was so eye-opening because it's so absurd, but it's so well done that you believe every step of that film while it's super absurd. And I think what really helps is how relatable the characters are. Like in the core, it's about human relationships, and I think that was such an important film for me, because I realized, okay, you can do everything in a film, and of course that's a challenge to do it that believable. But that was a really important one. Another one is Paris, Texas by Wim Wenders. I just love that film. And it's funny because I only recently discovered it, because I have this thing, like in film school, I saw so many like classics, but I sometimes you have seen, you know, only some clips of those films. And that was also the case with Paris, Texas. I truly thought I had seen that film. But then recently, when it was in the cinemas again, like restored, I saw it as a whole, and I was so blown away by how heartfelt those characters are, and how, yeah, it's just an all-time classic that's, you know, I think everyone should see, and it's just a really, really good film. What would be the third one? I have so many. Yeah, I have
You can
so
think
many.
about a third one, then I will say.
Yeah.
Definitely my first one is The Lovers on the Bridge, or Les Amants du Pont Neuf. It's the third film from Leos Carax, somewhere in the 90s. It's a wonderful love story, which is very romantic, but at the same time very tragic. I love Leos Carax as a director, by the way, all his films.
Holy Motors.
Holy
Yes,
Motors
that-
is fantastic
Yeah.
also, but The Lovers on the Bridge is one of the best ever. I could also name Brief Encounter by David Lean, or Rumblefish by Coppola, or Fight Club, David Fincher. I saw it the first time I saw it on a sneak preview, so I didn't know what I was going to see. And it was one of the most devastating experiences ever, because I was like, what did I see? And when I saw the film, I was like, I think I was silent for like an hour afterwards. Like, what the F did I see? But I'm not allowed to talk about it. Those are, I already mentioned 4. I can mention
Yeah,
8.5.
yeah.
I can mention September 5. We saw it a couple of weeks ago. I really love that film. It's also nominated for an Oscar. It's a wonderful film. Very good. Strange Darling, also a wonderful film from last year. What's your third? Now I'm just mentioning titles.
I would say Force Majeure by Ruben Östlund. That's one of his earliest films, because it's such a simple concept. And when I say simple, I mean it in the most positive way, because I truly believe that, you know, it's very hard to make a film with a simple concept and just really pull that off. And it really makes you question, like, oh, what would I do in that situation? So that would be my third one, I guess. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You got it.
We got them, but it's hard to choose because
Ask again tomorrow.
I'll get a whole different list, I'm sure. Now, similar question. If you could invite any 3 movie characters to your next dinner party, who would they be and why? If you don't want to do 3 each, maybe do 2 each and make a nice 4-person dinner party with the 2 of
The
you.
characters and dinner party, I immediately started to think about Matt Mikkelsen in Hannibal series. I know he's not the first person you would be with at a dinner party, but I would like to invite him, because then it's my dinner party. And what I remember from the series is that he only cuts people up and eats them when he invites them. I don't think he did it when people invite him. So I definitely would invite Hannibal, because I'm kind of
Hannibal Lecter.
Hannibal Lecter, but then the Matt Mikkelsen first
Yeah.
series. I love that character. He's so good.
Good one. I think if we would do a shared dinner party, I would ask the character Jackson Lamb from the series
So-
Slow Horses, played by Gary Oldman. I think that could be a really fun dynamic, you know, with him and
Jackson Lamb and Hannibal.
Hannibal.
And then Villanelle also from Killing Eve.
Villanelle from Killing Eve, played by Jodie Comer. That would be so much fun.
Yeah.
So like those are like
Those are pretty dark.
pretty dark and messed up characters.
It's gonna be a very dark dinner.
Dark dinner, yeah.
We have some fun characters solidified.
Sure. Have the police on speed dial just in case. Now, do you have any books that you could recommend that you've read recently or really enjoy? They could be fiction or nonfiction and don't necessarily have to be related to movies.
Yeah, I have this book that is already one of my favorites. It's called Second Best. It's written by this French Greek, I guess, writer David Foenkinos, who's also a screenwriter. But he wrote this book about the guy who didn't make it with the Harry Potter casting process. So he was literally second best. And the book is about his life afterwards and how that was changed by that incident. And it's really funny, like darkly funny and tragic. And you know, it's a really good book. I could really recommend that one.
Good one.
Yeah.
Excellent. And who else from the world of film should I have on the podcast as a guest?
Well, you were mentioning September 5. I don't know if you've already had a conversation with Tim Feilbaum, the director of that one, and also the co-writer of the film, because the September 5 is such a beautiful and smart and interesting film, and he's a really nice guy as well. I think that's also important. So I think it would
Yeah.
be so fun to talk to him about this film.
Yeah. And the film is nominated for an Oscar, so it fits your postas.
Yes, it does. Yeah, we'll have to try and see if we can get him on. And lastly, before we wrap up, do you have any other projects lined up? And also, where can people follow you on social media to keep tabs on what you're working on?
Well, I'm actually working on the feature version of the short film I'm Not a Robot. Because when I finished the short film, I just, I was still thinking about the characters and what would happen to them afterwards, but also what their backstory was, and like the whole realm of the film, like the whole world was still so intriguing. So I decided to explore that in a feature. So I'm now writing the scripts, and I'm just very excited to continue Lara's journey, like the main character's journey. And with social media, I am not on social media, so I do have LinkedIn. I'm not sure if that counts. But Trent has this Oak Motion Pictures, social media. I think you're on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
stuff.
The company is on all of it. Yeah.
So that's Oak Motion Pictures.
Yeah. Oak Motion Pictures on Facebook and Oak Motion on Instagram.
Wonderful. Well, we'll put some links to that in the show notes. And thank you so much for the time today. Really appreciated you sharing your film with me and getting to hear some of the stories that went into making it. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having
Thank you
us.
very much. It was really nice.
Thank you again to my guests today, Victoria Warmerdam and Trent. Their short film, I'm Not a Robot, is currently nominated for Best Live Action Short Film at the 97th Academy Awards. The Oscar Project podcast is written and produced by me, Jonathan Eaterberg, with editing assistance from Joshua Eaterberg. If you want more movie coverage, check out the Oscar Project online at theoscarproject.substack.com, and be sure to come back for my next episode where I will be discussing the 1927 film Seventh Heaven. Until then, I hope to see you at the movies.